Okay, so that's pretty much it for the backgrounds. And, there are a couple things to always check: where they're sitting in the track, how much compression, did you overcompress? Um, it's, it's genre specific. So if you're doing something in rock, you may want to get 6 to 9 dB of gain reduction out of it. If you're doing pop, you may not want to squash the life out of it. You may want to go with the McDSP instead of the waves because it's a different flavor, once again. Get to know your plugins. If you know your plugins, you know what change, you know what sound you may want to change. That's really important. But I think we've just about covered all of the stuff that you can do to backgrounds. If it's not working, look to the reasons why. Troubleshoot your sound. If you didn't record it and you are trying to figure out what's wrong with it, check to see if something is too mid-range. Check it because it may be against the guitars. They're not working well. They're not popping against the guitars. So decide which one is working better, the guitars or the backgrounds. Which one is supposed to pop? It may be the backgrounds are not supposed to jump out that much. It may be that the lead guitars are supposed to be there. You just need to sit down and listen and use your ears when you're working on a track to make sure that whatever you're doing is sonically working for the track. There have been a couple times when you listen to it in solo and you're like, wow, that's great. But then when you take it out of solo, it's like, wow, that is not working in the track. And you need to find that fine line between those two elements of in the track, in solo, and then out of the track, out of solo. Okay? So let's go back in and let's listen, see what we've got. We've got, I believe, all of our elements pretty much. One thing we need to talk about next is automation. Now with Pro Tools 8, what's really cool is that you have these things called channel lanes. And the channel lanes allow you to be able to have all of your parameters of a particular track spill out in lanes underneath. Typically I'll do something like this where I have it on large, and then if you click this triangle here, you can continue to click for the different channel lanes that you want to spill out. So let's put this here. Okay, so let's say for this we're going to do bus 3, and for this we're going to do send 4. So you've got your volume automation moves here. You've got send 3 here, and then you've got in your main you could have, say, something like you go back to waveform in case you want to edit something. So you've got all of your different parameters spilling out through your channel lanes, which is pretty cool. I really loved how DigiDesign has done this, and it's a great little move for us to be able to work within the parameters of seeing everything on screen and having access to it. Okay. As I said before, let's deal with a little bit of the automation of what we've got going on here. Let's unspill these automated lanes. Now, when I do volume rides, I don't do volume rides necessarily with a fader. It depends on what it is you're working with. If you're working with a lead vocal, I can look at a lead vocal. I can look at a lead vocal on the waveform and know pretty much what's going to work in a track. If you're hearing a lot of from a lead vocalist, you're going to want to go through, just like I've done here, and pull down those individual tracks. And that's very easy and very straightforward to do. Just go in, select, take your grabber tool, and pull down. So let's show you that by going here, switching over, and pulling down. Okay? So let's take a listen to that.
I'm looking at you, you're looking.
As opposed to if she were gasping still.
I'm looking at you, you're looking at me.
And all you're doing basically is trying to reduce the amount of breathiness in a track. You're not really trying to accentuate all the I mean, clearly a vocalist has to sing, but sometimes it's more distracting to have that vocalist gasping or breathing deeply in the track. So in this case, it's really good to kind of just go through and tuck those things in. So let's take a listen to this vocal.
I'm looking at you, you're looking at me.
Down.
You're trying to figure out what's on my mind. I wanna hide what I feel inside, and I don't know why. Sometimes I wish I didn't have to tell you, but I don't want you in the dark. I'll give you what I got.
Okay, so you'll notice on I Want You in the Dark, I actually went through here and raised up the level simply by going in, dragging, and moving up the cursor with the grabber tool. And the reason why is because I could have made those fader moves with an actual fader, but once again, you're chasing a fader. And it just wasn't something I want to do. If you didn't sit in front of an icon, as I'm doing with this now, you could have used a PreSonus fader port or the any number of other devices that are out there on the market that work really well for what you're doing. In my studio, I have a C24, and I could have used a C24 for this, but once again, if you can get in on the waveform, then you can go through and make more exact surgery for such things as, you know, gasp or someone breathing hard or something like that. The key here is making it musical and making it sound right. So clearly I'm sitting in front of a rather large icon, a 32 fader icon here at Sound Design. But in my room I have a C24 and I could write a vocal with that. But I choose sometimes to go through and actually listen note by note to what's going on and draw in my automation, because sometimes it gives a more lifelike feel to it. I know that seems kind of counterintuitive, but I can zoom in on exactly where it's at instead of chasing a fader all day long. There are a lot of times I'll chase the fader, but it just depends on what it works. For me, this works better sometimes. So let's deal with some of the automation places I've put a few of the automation delays. One of them is on this word. I'm going to take off the automation to begin with.
As me, you stay in my arms, I'll never.
Okay, I wanted a delay on the word never. So I reached in my palette of sounds, because as I told you before, I keep I call a little bank of sessions that I've done throughout the years from 2000 on to when I started mixing in the box. And I just keep them all in one folder. Typically, I may go through and say, man, there was a cool effect that I did 3 years ago or 2 years ago, or this work was such and such or so-and-so. And with import session data, you're able to set up and do exactly what you want to do with the parameters that you need for that occasion. So in this case, I called up my #1 delay I like to use, and I've set it on bus 4, and I've got the delay time, the tempo synced to the beats per minute, which is 88 beats per minute. I've got my low pass filter set to 12 kilohertz so that when it delays, it won't be as bright as the original vocal. I've got my feedback set to -50, and feedback sounds different at -50 than it does on +50. It gives more of a tunnel-like effect on -50. But you'll hear it in a second here. Then the second plugin I have in the chain is a Mondo mod from Waves, and it's got a range. What you should really look at is the range. How far is it going 360 degrees? Is it going 90 degrees? Well, I found that for this, it works best at 90 degrees because a lot of times at 180 degrees, it feels like it's almost out of phase to the rest of whatever you're doing and kind of throws it out of whack. But it works really well in conjunction with the EQ3 plugin from DigiDesign. And I've got that on a high-pass filter. It's a one-band EQ using the high-pass, 24 dB per octave at 1K. And what that's going to do is it's going to make it more of a radio effect, so it drops to the background instead of mimicking exactly what we had before. For instance, if I shut it off and bypass it, it sounds like this.
As me, you stay in my arms. I'll never say it, yeah, yeah.
Which could be a little distracting. If we put that bypass filter back in, now it's bypassing up to 1K. Sounds like this.
Me, you stay in my arms. I'll never say it, yeah, yeah.
Once again, we're using EQ, in this case the high-pass filter, to kind of push it further back into the track because it seems more distant because it is a filtered out or a less potent reverb, a less potent delay of exactly what we've got going on with that lead vocal. And I've got that in a couple of places. Check this out down here.
Never thought I would love you, and I never thought I'd need you like I do, like I do.
Same thing here at the back end of the song. Once again, I try not to overdo it. You know, I've had someone call me this week and say, man, I love the delays, but just turn them down like about 2 dB. Because they have to fit within the song musically. You know, in pop or in dance, they may be hotter and louder, and in R&B a little less so, and in rock a lot less so. So it's one of those things where, you know, it's the salt to taste, kind of like your mileage may vary kind of a thing. You have to go in and make sure that they fit within the track of what you're doing. So, okay, I think we have pretty much everything that we've talked about that we've built this track on. Ultimately, what you want to do now is, while you're dealing with your automation and your intricacies of where things are sitting in the track, you want to make sure that the stereo bus is not being overloaded. You want to make sure you're like for instance, I'm using the tone lux. I want to make sure that I'm just not overloading the tone lux and I'm not really getting the warmth of that. I've been printing my mixes lower and lower and trying to not overload my 2-bus and letting some of that goodness of the analog shine through. Because a little bit can go a long way toward your mixes. It still gives you all of your delays and compressors and EQs and everything pretty much in the box still, but allows you to be able to have the flavor of analog in your mixes and really enjoy your life.